boom, with another episode, Sage Ramble TV, 16 or 15, 16, and we
16.
will coach our imaginary friend. His name is well, we don't have a name, but pretty much we will give coaching to a newbie closer that is coming in, that is needing to land a closer position, that is needing to get into the right mindset, that is needing to get into the right frameworks, that is needing to get into the right routines, right, in order to truly succeed within this space. So we're just gonna think of a dude and start coaching this guy, and we'll see how it goes. So let me start out. The first step is pretty much landing a position. And no chance, you and I, we have different methods of landing a position. But let's say this guy now, walks up to us and he's a newbie closer. What's the step he's going to do or need to do?
It depends. Does he already know how to network? Like, has he been through any networking training?
That's up for us to decide. I mean, probably not.
Okay. So first things first, man. He's gotta define what his like dream role is, right? And by that I mean niche, right? Does he want to do biz op? Does he want to do real estate? He or she, sorry. Do they, he or they, that's a much better term. Do they want to do real estate, biz op, marketing, business coaching? There's so many different niches out there. We got to single down to a handful. We got different criteria. I say 3 to 5 is really appropriate. Anything more than that, and it's kind of like, eh. And then from there, what you got to do is, we're different here. You say 100, I say 50. I think 100 is a little bit of an overkill. I would tell them to find 50 of the best and like highest companies that are inside that niche. And then from there, we reverse engineer it using your checklists and all your different worksheets that you have that are freaking amazing to really understand and pinpoint the top 10 that you would want to work for out of those 50, right? And then we just start networking, man. And of course, there's different ways to network. You network with people on the inside, people on the outside, people that have worked there, people that are working there, etc.
There is also a specific way where you can pinpoint those top 5 or even narrow it down to top 3, top 4. By just like defining the niche. A lot of people say, hey, I want to be in BizOp, and that's all they do. But what about like what type of entrepreneur are you serving? Is it like a company? Is it a coach? Is it like a one-man band? Like, who is this person that we're working for and we're selling for to these precious people that are eventually looking for someone to be heard of or someone to know how to solve their problems? Like, what are their values? How do they live? What are we giving to the prospects? Just like painting up like this clear vision. And then once we know, like having like a rough idea of the companies that we have in front of us, we can even see on their website, what are the top 3 values. And it just shows to the company and it shows to us that we're, committed enough to at least do some research and get to know who they are before we actually say, hey, let's work together. Right.
Yeah, bro, I agree. That's very important because, building these subsections under the main sections are going to take you a long ways. It's a very good point, David. That's why I call you the networking god, man. Because if you just say biz op, well, dickhead, what kind of biz op? Like, there's a million biz ops out there, right? Are we going to help old people? Are we going to help young people? Do we want to do Amazon? Do we want to do crypto trading? Like, there's a ton. Yeah, good point, bro. Good point.
Oh yeah. And another thing to put on top of that, which I am a true believer on, which is content and posting, right? Like, I want this guy to post some content, like post some content about like what type of sales philosophy that you're following. That means that whenever a recruiter and a company looks through your profile, they see exactly what type of sales that you're doing, and they can already then decide if they want to speak to you or not. So we're not wasting each other's time.
Exactly, bro. Exactly. It's like a company's version of RVSL, right? They do a couple minutes of research. They decide, hey, do I want to move forward or not? Right. And it's huge, man, because if they don't know your name, why would they hire you?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like as I've continued to get more consistent with my content, my friend requests are blowing up. bro. Like it's getting people that I've never even seen. Like, and it's getting mad out here, and it's something where I'm like, man, I should have been doing this months ago, right? Because I mean, I was semi-consistent with content, maybe a post here and there, but I'm trying to post every day now, and it's just been crazy, right?
Yep, yep. The another thing with, profiles, your branding, is figuring out your pillars and moving on, because let's say, and we are probably gonna go with the more controversial topic again, right? Like if it's a newbie closer, we've just met with Hunter and this episode is coming out the week after. Hunter went directly to closing and he succeeded. Now, there are other people that are going to closing positions and they, crumble under pressure, or the company that they vetted is not good enough, or, you're set up to fail. That's when we get into like a position of, all right, well, do we really get onto another closing position, or do we really analyze where we are and go back to setting, build up that confidence again, and then aim for the clouds?
Yeah, man. It depends on what you're looking for and what you value, right? I mean, if somebody wants to make money and they want to make money quickly and they don't mind putting some time in the trenches, I would say set first, right? And there's been tons of people who go straight into closing and make a shit ton of money, right? I mean, it really comes down to the person. However, for those that do want to set first, they need some training, right?
Yeah.
And by training, I don't mean just like, hey, here's a script, good luck, right? Like people, we're talking a newbie, right? A brand new person. They need to understand what a set is, right? They need to understand that our job is to ask impactful questions and talk less and listen more, right? Yes, shocker, they need a good framework to follow. I know some people are completely against frameworks. I believe that you should use a framework until you're confident enough in your own ability, right? I mean, there's a ton that I could say here, man. Like, you got to learn what red flags to look for so you can dive into them, right? Staying out of the weeds, because new setters tend. I did it myself when I first started setting. A setting call can go 25 minutes if you're not careful, right? And then it's not a setting call anymore. It's like talking to your friend, right? And then the last thing that is very controversial, and I think it should be saved until you're pretty high level, is price dropping on the setting call. I set my own appointments and I price drop on setting calls, and I do it for a very important reason. Little insight to a value presentation that I'm wrapping up here, but it's really just to make sure it makes sense to even work together, right? Because there's two things. One is to make sure it makes sense to work together, and two is to pre-handle objections before the closing call. Because if I price drop and somebody's like, dude, I got $500. All right, well, all right, this isn't going to work. If I price drop and somebody's like, yeah, maybe they're just scared, or I've got the money, I don't want to spend it. I would much rather handle it on a 10-minute call than at the end of an hour call. Right.
Yep. Yep. I mean, because pretty much, right? I mean, it's the 9 to 5 to the like business owner mindset. Like we don't want to spend like an hour with someone if we don't have to. If we're able to eliminate that on a 10-minute call, especially if we're paid in commissions, bro, and that's like our way of gaining a living, and we need to spend like an hour with someone who wasn't even going to buy. Now, that's not like for a newbie, that may be some limiting beliefs that comes up when you ask for the order, or when you disqualify someone early on, like you feel like you're ruining like the relationship. But here's the thing: it's along with the sales mindset that a newbie has to learn. We rather have empathy than sympathy. Empathy, we're holding this leadership stance, but when we sympathize with someone else, we're kind of, we're crying with them. We are moaning with them, or mourning with them, with the freaking situation that they're in. And once we do that, we're seen as a friend, we're seen as a buddy, and there's no leadership to be held for us to lead them in like out of the darkness, I suppose.
No, man, I agree. I agree. And it's very important to frame it as you're on their side. So something I do, and again, it's not very, this is high level and you have to do it correctly, is basically frame it as so I don't waste an hour of your time on this next call, there's a couple of things I have to go over to make sure we're on the same page. And I go over the investment, and then I go over the fact that the next call is a decision-making call. And it's easy to do because the next call is with me. I'm not passing it to a stranger. It's like, hey, before we book this call, we need to come to an agreement that this is the minimum investment, and you can do that without, being in a tight financial spot. And then secondly, that we're getting on that call to make a decision. Right. And these are high level tactics. And I'm putting a presentation. I wanted to get it done today, but it's a couple of things that I didn't have in there that I really want to have in there. So I'm doing what I told you I wasn't going to do. I'm going to re-record it. I'm doing a presentation on how I do that and how to do it at a high level, because I think it would save a lot of people time in this world. But hey, enough about the setting process. So let's move forward. We're trying to keep these lean and mean.
Before we move on, right? If you want that video, drop in the comments price drop and we'll send it over to you. Moving on with something else. I think sales mindset, whether you're into like a closing position or selling position, is important. Chance, a question for you.
Yeah, bro.
As someone who kind of is leaning towards getting into like sales managing positions, you're that top G on sales with the companies you're working with. For I guess have you ever worked with newbies before, like complete like clean slates, never done anything before?
Yeah, so I'm working with one right now. One of my buddies, he was setting and wasn't really working out. Nothing against him, Oscar. If you see this, bro, I'm not throwing you under the bus here. Our styles just don't mesh. The way that he sets and the way that I close just wasn't really working out. Right. So he wanted to try his hand at closing, and that's why I'm setting and closing, and he's setting and closing. He's never closed before, right? So him and I came to an agreement that he's going to kind of be like a brain farting on the word here. Like my first on the offer I'm on, sales managing, is going to be the first person that I manage. Right. And I'm giving him 2 weeks, this week and next week, to get some reps under his belt. And then we're going to assess where he is, what he could have done better. And I'm basically going to coach him for free. I mean, the company's paying me. Right. But I'm going to coach him for free. I'm not charging him. Right. And we're going to see where it goes. So, yeah, man, he's my first that I've tackled on an offer with zero sales experience. I've helped people with zero sales experience, like through DMs and personal one-on-one calls. But like taking under the wing, yeah, this is going to be my first one, man.
Yeah. And as I understand, he was setting for you first as a newbie coming in with zero sales experience. I guess like for a newbie coming in like that, because what's the like sales mindset that you often need to kind of like reframe in their mind?
Sales mindset that you got to reframe in their mind. Oh man, there's so many. I would say the very first one that you just that's so hard to break, because I understand it's how you get paid, is to detach yourself from the outcome of the sales process. Right. And it is the hardest one because the outcome is money, and money pays your bills. Right. And it's hard. That would be like telling an hourly employee not to worry about what they're going to get paid. Like, hey, you're going to get the job. We'll talk about pay after you sign the papers. Right. It's hard. It's a really hard thing to break. And I think it's the most important. And then I would say the second one, since we're talking about emotional first, I would say is don't take things personally. Right. Just because a prospect doesn't tell you no, doesn't mean they don't like you, doesn't mean they don't like the product, doesn't mean this, doesn't mean that. Right. Not taking things personally has worked wonders for me. And it actually gets some people on board. Right. Like when a prospect says no and you just lean back and you're like, okay. They're like, wait, okay. What do you mean? Right. Now, obviously, there's more to it than that. But yeah, I would say those are the two biggest ones to do first. And then, I mean, we can talk about like other ones as well if you want, but I would love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah. Because I think I was 7 months into my setting career when I was about to transition to being a closer. So pretty much the company ordered me to train the 2 new setters to come in, just match my output, and I was the one training them up. And the number one thing that I was pretty much coaching them on was because they kind of like had a limiting belief. your light just went off. Anyways, they
Sorry,
kind
bro.
of they kind of had like a limiting belief when it came to like bothering people within a day, right?
Oh, damn, I can't believe I forgot about that one. Yes, that's fucking
Yeah.
huge. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that was like the number one thing when it came to like dialing and just keeping things up. But at the end of the day, they signed up. Like the person that you're calling put their name and emails and phone number that they
Yeah,
were interested. So it's, up to hours. Like I I think the word is courtesy I use when I coach them. Like it's up to like it's from our courtesy to call them up and let them know, hey, we are thinking about you. We saw you came in for this. Do you still want it? And
bro,
that
I
was
shit you not.
that was the number one.
It's crazy you brought that up because right now, and this is why we're looking for a new setter that's not scared to just smile and dial. Because right now, and I just found this out the other day. Like, I'm surprised I was the one that found this out. So we get, it might shrink the light a little bit here. Let me minimize this so I can get some good light in here, just so I can tell you numbers wise really fast here. We get like over 30 new leads a day that watch our VSL and fill out the information, but they don't necessarily respond to the automation text or book a call. Nobody was reaching out to those people, bro.
Those are pretty
Nobody.
warm.
Yeah, people that fill the form out, but they don't book a call and they don't respond to the automation. They gave us their contact information. That's essentially saying, call me. Right?
Yeah.
Nobody, I messaged the business owner. I was like, dude, like our setter wasn't calling these people. Like, what are we doing? So now we're looking for an outbound setter that's just, hey, it's going to be grindy. You're going to smile and dial. Essentially, what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Probably a newish setter that I can take in, train, and then send them away to smile and dial, bro. And that's it's huge you brought that up because that's yes, I take back what I said. That is the number one thing first. That is the number one thing first. That is the first thing that I learned. The person that I worked for, big entrepreneur, his setting training video, one of the very first things he said is, you're going to eat a lot of shit, which is essentially what we just talked about, right? Like, you got to be able to call somebody if they say, fuck you. Okay, boom, on to the next one.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's don't take things personally.
It's
Right. But
one
hey,
out of 159 out of a day.
exactly.
So I guess like moving on to with this training with just coaching
Yeah.
setters and coaching new closers.
Mhm.
One the next thing that was on my mind that I had to coach them through is our fulfillment. So I wanted them to understand the impact that we were making with the fulfillment that we are doing, right? If we're helping so many people with these strategies, it's just like, it just pains me to see that so many people have opted in for this, but they're not, nourishing, the almost like the outcomes of what's going to happen if you actually do take this on. And if we do find that this is the right fit, because obviously they're putting their information. So obviously what we are doing here hit their pain points or resonate with them. So that was another thing, like understanding the market, understanding the prospect, understanding the offer. I had the guys go through our program multiple times, just understand, because we were selling marketing to small, medium-sized businesses. So there were a little bit of a learning curve. But once that learning curve were overcome, they were just starting blasting calls, right? Because we aren't afraid to bother them in a day. They, put in their information, but as well of, well, here's the impactful training. That was the two most biggest points, really.
Yeah, I agree, man. You got to be in tune with the offer, and you got to understand it all to sum all that up. Conviction, right? You got to have conviction, man. And I could ramble. I've rambled enough on this episode, so I don't want to just repeat what you said in different words. To sum all that up, put a nice little bow on it, the word conviction comes to mind. You got to have conviction when you're setting, and you got to have conviction with your closing. So nobody's gonna give somebody money who doesn't have conviction. You're not gonna go buy a car from a salesman that isn't convicted about the car that you're buying. right? You're not going to go buy a phone from a phone sales guy that knows nothing about the phone and can't tell you anything and is like nervous, right? It's just, yeah.
Yep. And moving on to, right, because we've spoken about networking, we've spoken about like how you can really organize yourself before you really start reaching out, what you can do beforehand to really make sure that you increase your odds of, landing a good position with a good company. That's great potential. We've spoken about like certain mindset tricks, but also, when it comes to, let's say, sales frameworks and what to really say in a closing call, what to really say in a setting call, the company will most likely have some type of framework. I'm not sure if we are able to bring something up on this call because it will most likely is ruin the recording. But we might be able to send out like some tiny little resource of, all right, so here's the 7 steps, here's what should be going on each and every one of them. But to pretty much sum it all up, if you've listened through the entire thing, what I want to wrap this up with is tracking. I think that's something that gets overlooked a lot and people are lazy. But when it's done properly, you're like growing faster than everyone else.
And more importantly, on top of tracking, and JD just brought this up, and I stand behind him 100%. Tracking the no's, right? Tracking the people that told you no and why they told you no. There's a lot of truth and there's a lot of answers. And I'm just repeating literally what JD said on this last mentorship call I got on in the beta program he's working on. But it's something that I believe in too, and it's something that I preach to people that I help. You got to track your no's. There's a ton of truth and there's a ton of answers that lie in those no's. Because if you can fundamentally understand why somebody said no, you can more than likely reverse engineer that so the next person doesn't say no, as long as it's something that is fixable. Some people are just, hey, it's not a fit. And if you have your process in tune, you'll know that before the end of the call, right? But hey, that's another conversation for another day. But yeah, man, one thing that I do want to add that you brought up is there will be companies that have their own script and they have their own process. I've got my own process and I've got numbers to back me up that it works. And if you have a good, fundamentally sound process, it can translate to any industry. You just plug in some words for words here. But if you're new, don't have an ego. Don't be like, why are they making me follow a script? Why are they doing this? Because odds are, if you do your homework and you do what we just talked about and you follow David's networking steps, it's a successful company. They have it down to a science. Follow that, get comfortable with it, prove that you're worth the money and the time, and then you can change it up. Right? That's all I got to say about that. Because I see that a lot. People are like, man, you're making me follow this script. And like, it's like, okay, cool. What's their top closer doing? 25K a month. Does he use the script? Yes. Shut the fuck up.
That's hilarious. I mean, that's absolutely to T. I mean, I think for me to just give people a perspective, at my first tech sales opportunity, they had frameworks laid out, they had the mindset laid out. I was getting coaching twice a week, and now we're each session on that exact framework. It took me about like 8 months when I was transitioning to being a closer, where I could go out of like that framework, but also making my own style because I knew what I was doing before and what was fitting and what was not due to those repetitions. And after my 8th month going to the half, a year and a half, I was, fully working with my own script due to that progression of just learning more, consuming more, tracking, and just like getting up to speed with that, then just going full on. All right, so I've got this script from $1,000 program that I got, and I got this script here that is making the company 500K a month. Right? It's like, come on.
No, bro, I completely agree. And different people adjust at different speeds. I used my first closing gig. I used their script for 2 weeks and I hated it. Wasn't me, wasn't my style, didn't mesh. I reworked it. I was in multiple mentorship groups and I got a lot of advice from people and I adopted a framework that I still use to this day that I've made my own. And I went from, I think I closed one deal in my first 2 weeks to making 10K in my first month. I closed like 20 something deals.
It's like
Yeah.
this one.
So it's about finding your style in their framework, right? Because just because I sell the way that I do, I could give everybody who watched this video my exact framework that I use on every call that I follow. Not, I don't obviously follow every single bullet point. Every call is different, but I could give you my framework that I've used to make a lot of money and make people a lot of money. And just because I can work it doesn't mean you'll be able to work it, because that's me. I've reworked it to how I sell. Right? Like I could
Yep,
give it to
yep.
you. And just because we think the same doesn't necessarily mean you would have the same success with it. Now I guarantee you would, right? Because I mean, we're like the same people. But yeah, man, that's all I have to say on that point. We're running out of time here, so I don't want to keep rambling.
Yeah, I mean, it's just plugging this in there. It was a clear, realization for me because I was coaching with Marco Cortesi and the group with the seventh level, the German minor people,
Oh
and
yeah,
Marco jumped
that's
on
bad.
and yeah. I mean, Marco jumped on and he was like, "Here's my script. I'm gonna he was on fire, like he was just
Yeah,
sharing the script like right on the screen. I was like, what the hell is this? He's thinking in boxes. For some reason, he has like a one-page PDF, and it's like the boxes, like several boxes on the page, and it's like just looking at this, but what in the hell am I looking at? Right. So it's the same with, switching script, right? We just, have several references, but we also lean into creating our own. But anyways, guys, I think it's time to wrap up this episode. You have any last words? Have any last words,
I really don't, man. Just drop any questions you guys have. If you made it to the end, give us a like, please. Helps the algorithm. Comment anything, subscribe, turn that bell on, and I'm gonna have that presentation done definitely within the next 24 hours. I just got to re-record. There was, I'll tell you more about it, David. There's a couple pieces that I really wanted to have that I forgot to put in there. So
I mean,
I
they'll
think it's
see
gonna
this
be a
episode
resource
next week.
that. Oh, there you go. Okay, cool. So I think it'll be a resource that can help setters make a shit ton of money, because I'm essentially giving my secret sauce away for free. So not everything, just how I do it and why I do it. But that's it for me, bro.
All right. Well, peace
So
out.
wait, kid.